alternate life for 30 years. A post by Roaming Armed on the Indianet subreddit posted a year ago. So I came across Steve Cantwell's experience with Salvia. He was talking about it on a podcast where he lived an alternate life for 8 years while in the midst of a Salvia trip that lasted about 45 seconds. He lived this alternate life in Texas while he himself was actually in Alaska. In my hunt for such an experience, I came across a gentleman on Reddit who shared his Salvia trip at 19, where he lived an alternate life for 30 years instead. He was kind enough to share the complete trip report, which I've shared below. This isn't one I've made an actual trip report on, but I have mentioned it in some comments recently. People asking about parallel lives. This is an older experience now that I had many years ago. It's always been a pretty personal thing to me, but it's definitely a parallel life experience. I was 19 when it happened. I'd gotten into this habit of tripping with mirrors at the time. So I was in my bathroom, standing in front of the sink. I had some really bad experiences prior, and honestly, my plan was to try and bolt if shit got too strange. I remember with this one in particular, it seemed like nothing was happening. Everything was normal. I leaned in closer to the mirror, and the pupil in one of my eyes started growing and didn't stop. This all happened very fast, and there was no escaping it. It pulled me in like a black hole. I remember being stretched into a line and then smashed into a dot, and then blinked out into darkness. That's all I really have going into it. That blink into darkness faded back out as an opening of my eyes. But when I did so, I was a different person, living a different life on a whole different world than ours. I was now this dude in his 30s, waking up from some kind of overdose. It was very intense on that end of it, because I'd still had strong memories of this life that you and I are in now. It took me about a year of their time to reorient myself to that reality. I couldn't even talk right for a little while because I was trying to talk like we do. Everybody thought I had brain damage. In that year, I went to sleep every night expecting to wake up back here in my bathroom. I could not accept that it was real, but it just wasn't going away at all. I could count time down to the second in that reality. The memories of this life eventually began to fade through. I didn't have all the little details anymore to try and make sense of it to others. Within that life, I also had some pretty big responsibilities that I had to focus on. I had a family and a house. The whole overdose thing cost me a job, but we were able to turn things around once I put my past behind me. You have to understand that this was all backwards for me. While I was there, my experience was that I had done a drug and experienced years of another life, and within that life I did a drug that brought me back. Basically, exactly what I am doing right now in trying to explain this is what I was doing over there too. When you're in one of these parallels like this, no matter which direction you are heading, they become your base reality for the experience. I was questioning our world, our physical reality that exists right now, not theirs. Theirs was my actual reality for the time being. So about 30 years later, I was an old man in their reality. My kids were grown up and had moved out. One of them had asked me to look for something for them in the attic. I went up there and found a box that was very out of place. In it were things from this life that we are in now. This was the single biggest mindfuck I think I've ever experienced in my life. In that box though was a pipe and the same drug I had overdosed on. The same exact bowl actually. It was a little burnt, but still, it had a few tokes left. I was just so confused and felt like I was finally close to an answer. So I hit it one more time and closed my eyes. When I opened them again, I was standing in my bathroom, 19, looking straight at the mirror. And just like the first transition, I was all fucked up about it. I still had to reorient myself, but this was Salvia, so there was no waking up from an overdose. It was like 30 years of whatever the hell that was just crammed into my head all of a sudden. I think it was about 4 minutes that had passed in total. Around 3 AM, I remember just sitting on the bathroom floor feeling like my head was going to explode. But not in the pounding headache kind of way. I just sat there for 4 hours, and at one point I just started crying because I couldn't grasp what had happened to me. I was still very aware of my wife and kids, and wondering if I'd ever see them again. My sister didn't even knock. She just slowly opened the door and asked what was up. She was actually very crucial in helping me reorient myself to this reality as my own name. I tried to explain to her what had happened. My language is a little off again, but not as bad as it was before, and she pretty much kept my family at bay while I sorted everything out. It didn't take me long to put on the mask, but mentally it did take me about another year to let it go. And that's another problem, is the whole mask idea. I don't know how to fully feel like this person that I am, but I am trying every day. I've seen many other parallels, even on things other than Salvia. With Salvia, I've left the parallels altogether and experienced core self. This was significant, as my longest lived and most detailed parallel experience to date. You know, this is really why you don't blast a whole bowl of high-level Salvia extract by yourself to see something cool. That's not what this is. It is extremely powerful, and it will loosen anyone's grip on reality. Best to go in there as a no one. This must be respected as something more than a drug. You have to let go of this illusion if you wish to do Salvia properly. Any and all attachments to yourself must be left at the door before you cross over. This is how you bypass the parallels and reach the core self. This is how we can remember who we truly are.